My name is Richmond Bongani Mahlangu. I am the founder of the Richmond Mahlangu Foundation, which is a non-profit organization. Our primary goal is to empower and fund low-income children to have access to higher education, which ultimately they can become a productive member of our society. I have a very unique position. I work as a guidance counselor for the Clark County School District in Las Vegas, Nevada. And every day I see a lot of young people who are excited to be here. They come from all different walks of life. One of the reasons why I started this organization, I find that most of the low-income children are the ones that struggle the most in school. The first primary reason I believe most of the low-income students struggle in school is because we come from a long tradition of families who did not graduate from high school, obviously didn't go to college. So the way people look at education, we don't look at education as part of our culture. It's not part of our everyday thinking. For example, most of the parents who are themselves illiterate, their children, they don't go to the library to check out books of their like. It's not a part of everyday thinking of reading to the kids. Obviously, if you can't read to a child, if you can't read yourself, it's hard to read to a child. So basically what happens is most of these parents basically rely on the schools to educate the children, which is traditionally used to work. But nowadays, we know that most parents who are educated, who have a college degree, when they get home with their children, there's a lot of school-related activities that take place in terms of doing homework and studying. They teach the best way to study. The groups of people they hang around with are the groups of kids who basically have higher goals in terms of achieving education. So those kids will automatically, when they come to school, they're a little bit ahead. They can read, they can add, they can multiply, they can do all sorts of stuff. And the children coming from families where they have not had a lot of help, a lot of training with school stuff, when they start school, they feel that they're already behind. A lot of them struggle to read, and they don't feel empowered. Even sometimes our school officials don't treat them as intelligent kids. They start to get a stigma. So what happens to these kids? The bell rings, they hang in the hallways, hitting high fives and doing all sorts of stuff instead of going to class, because they have an inferiority complex somehow. They're not excited to go and learn. So ultimately, they score poorly in tests, they don't do homework. And in a lot of schools, the schools are doing a pretty much good job to try and motivate the kids. They have tutoring after school. And sometimes these kids, because they feel so overwhelmed, they don't even go. So my goal is to kind of help these children to change that mindset a little bit, to look at this in a different spectrum, to see education as their number one primary goal to escape their immediate situation at home. The second issue I wanted to address that I believe is the second number one reason why these children are unsuccessful is the fact that the majority of these kids, their fathers are absent. In a black community, the fathers are absent. Some of these children, when you talk to them, they'll tell you they have not spoken to their fathers in 5 years. In fact, they don't even know where their father is. You know, we can blame this to everything under the sun. Slavery, apartheid, or whatever you want to blame it on. The reality is, there is no slavery today, and there is no apartheid. There are still obstacles. why a lot of poor people struggle. I get it. At the same time, I strongly believe that it is up to each individual to make the decisions that are going to make them successful. In other words, if you are not happy with your immediate situation today, what is it that you are doing to guarantee and make sure that next week and the week after, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, your life's going to be better? This is the mindset that I'm looking to empower these children with. To see education as part of their culture, to see their education as a realistic path out of poverty. And to be honest with you, I don't think it's that difficult. Again, I'm talking about the mindset. And you see these problems we run into consistently in our country. When I talk about self-accountability, I'm talking about that every day when you wake up in the morning and you look yourself in the mirror and you make up the decisions about what is it that I'm going to do today to make sure that tomorrow my life's going to be better. I'm one of those kids. I was born in Durban, South Africa, in a township called Lamontville. Both of my parents were not educated. They didn't finish middle school. My father was a minister, very, very quiet man, very humble. Three things were very important to my father about us: that we went to school, that we were respectful, and that we went to church. My mother spent most of her life cleaning, cooking, making sure that we had everything that we needed. But school was the most important thing in my family. As a 10-year-old boy, I was not very happy with the whole system of apartheid, where basically blacks went to segregated schools, segregated hospitals, bus stops were all segregated. Basically everything under the sun. The whites live in one area, the blacks live on the other side, the Indians and the colors. I had this phenomenon in my head as a young boy, this dream that every day I could make a difference in my life. When I told people as a 10-year-old boy in Africa that one day I'm going to go to America and go to university, go to college and study so I could come back and help my family, can you guess what everybody did? They laughed at me because it was something in their minds that was beyond reach. They asked me, do you even know where America was? And I said, I don't know, but I know that I'm going to go to America. I discovered a couple of months later a game of tennis where this white man drove by my township and he sees me playing against the wall with an old tennis racket, broken strings, barefoot, and he decides to stop and talk to me. At the end of the conversation, we agreed upon that I would go to this place where he used to give these lessons. I would pick up the balls for him when I was coaching this group of white kids for 3-4 hours, and then I would get a half an hour of instruction later. I did that for 2 years. 2 years without missing one day, unless it was raining. After that, Mr. Gray went to this white club and asked if I could be a member, because they had to make an exception since blacks couldn't play in white clubs, or there was basically no mixture in these clubs. They accepted his request. When I was almost 13, tragically, my father passed away, leaving my mother with 5 children. And out of the 5, there's 3 girls, my brother, and I'm the youngest out of the 5. There was another motivational reason for me to try harder. I recognized very early that my mother couldn't do this on her own. I had to do my part. So every single day I lived this dream of going to America and going to university. I would go out and train every day for 3 hours on a tennis court after I got out of school. Go home, do my homework, all my homework, and turn in the next day. When I turned 18, there was a gentleman that came to visit the club where I was playing at Mitchell Park. And he heard my story and he decided to sponsor me to Austria. He had a tennis school in Austria. The goal was still to come to America and go to college. I went to Austria, worked for this man for 1.5 years, It was very difficult. Everything was different. Everybody was different. They spoke a different language, which is German. Eventually, I got to learn because I spoke Afrikaans, which is Dutch, in South Africa, or a dialect of Dutch rather, which kind of helped me pick up the language a little sooner. Just by luck, or coincidence if you want to call it, this one afternoon, a young gentleman by the name of Norman Moores, he's actually Canadian, came to this facility or this tennis camp looking for somebody to play with. Of course, I was the youngest out of all the pros, the South African team. So I went and played with Norman. We got done. He was very impressed by my performance and my attitude. He called the coach here in Las Vegas, a gentleman by the name of Craig Witcher, who was the men's head coach. One thing led to another. I ended up getting recruited to UNLV in 1986. I came here. I specifically remember when I landed at the Los Angeles International Airport. I had 2 tennis rackets and $300 in my pocket. That's everything I owned when I got here. I attended University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Again, everything was very different culture. I did not understand the professors. I struggled very hard in school. But I was not about to give up on my goal because I knew that I had the greatest opportunity ever. I basically was having my education paid for because I was a decent tennis player. I finished my undergraduate, went back to Europe, and spent a couple of years. And when I came back to the United States, I had 2 children and I was married. I wanted to go to graduate school because I did not think that my undergraduate degree was going to give me enough income to be able to support my children. I went to graduate school and I studied educational psychology, which basically gives me the opportunity to do this job that I do today. When my boys were 4 and 6 years old, the older one's name is Nicholas and the young one is Yannick, I started coaching them tennis. And my goal with tennis, it was not that they become tennis professionals. Right from the beginning, the primary goal was that they use their athletic ability to be able to access the best academic institutions that America has to offer. So we went to all the tournaments. We had a very tough training every day. I picked them up from school at 2:30. We went to train 2:30 to 5:30. They went home, had dinner, did homework, and went to bed, and repeated that every single day until they were 18 years old. When my oldest son was 17, which is 2011, he got recruited to Harvard University by their tennis team, basically on a full ride tennis academic scholarship. A year later, Yannick got recruited to Georgetown University. Yannick now is a sophomore at Georgetown University, and Nicholas is a junior at Harvard University studying computer science. Yannick is studying international relations. I've done this 2 times. My own life, pursuing education or higher education, and my children have done the same thing because of the driving force that my ex-wife and I as parents we had. Even through the divorce, we co-parented the children. We're basically, for both of us, we had our differences in terms of how we looked at things in life, but in terms of how we looked at education for the kids, we had one goal. She did a lot of homework with the kids when I was out working, for the kids to do their homework, make sure that they were studying, that they were doing everything that they were doing. And I believe this is one reason why they're able to be successful. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to listen to this speech. I pledge you to go to the website that you see on the screen and donate whatever you can to help me make this dream come true for these children who without your donations don't have a realistic chance. I'm here today because of the people who believed in me, and who are willing to help me in different ways, including money, training, education, and everything else. Thank you.